Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Well, we have a very special guest today. I think we're going to learn a lot from him. Our special guest today is Angelo Codevilla. He's a professor emeritus of international relations at Boston University and a member of the working group on military history of the Hoover Institute, Stanford University. He's been a U.S. naval officer, a U.S. Foreign Service officer, and a senior staff of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and he also served on President-elect Reagan's transition team for the U.S. Department of State. So what an honor to have him. Angelo, nice to see you, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, you got an interesting topic, your new book, Getting Involved in Other Nations' Quarrels, and you obviously got a lot of interest and experience in this. What led you to write about it?
Well, look, one day I was listening to Fox News, and I heard an appeal for the Wounded Warrior Project. This is a noble cause that collects money for wounded veterans. And part of the appeal was a song, a plaintive song. It said, "Say a prayer for peace." I thought to myself, if I'd been paying money to plumbers to fix my house's pipes, and someone said to me, "Say a prayer," and the pipes continued to leak, and someone said to me, "Say a prayer for your pipes," I would have said, look, well, God has nothing to do with my pipes. It's those plumbers whom I've been paying, and they've not been doing a good job. Instead of praying, I ought to fire them and get some people who know what they're doing. We have been fighting wars for nonstop now for over a decade, and the most interesting thing is that no one seems to be thinking about how to stop them. The idea is simply to keep on going indefinitely. This is against nature. The nature of all human activity is that it has an end. Things have a beginning and an end. But the idea that something, especially war, can or should go on indefinitely without an attempt to bring it to a conclusion, that is unnatural. That's wrong. So I went into a historical inquiry into how it got that way.
Well, it's a mess. You're right. We go in with seemingly no exit plan. We talk about it. We really don't. We're stuck in there for years. We spend a lot of money, and we criticize a lot of people. We get uptight, and we come out with our tail between our legs. What are we doing?
Well, a lot of things wrong. First of all, it's not simply an idea of how to get out. The idea is, what are you doing to begin with?
Right.
Do you? What is the plan? What is the good that you are trying to achieve? Do you know how to achieve it? The objective of war, of course, is peace. If you know what stands in the way of your peace, and you know that by getting rid of that thing you can achieve peace, then it makes sense to make war. If you don't know what the thing it is that you must remove in order to have peace, then much better to stay in bed because you're only going to do harm. Our founders had a very, very tight relationship with.
Okay, we're having some technical problems, and I apologize for that. Let me see if we can take a quick break and maybe reconnect with him. I apologize for that. Sometimes that happens with Skype. We're just not getting a good signal. So let me take a quick break. We'll see if we can reconnect with Angelo in just a few moments.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Okay, we're back, and I apologize for our technical difficulties there, and I think now we've reconnected with Angelo. Again, I apologize, sir. Sometimes that happens, and we value greatly your time giving to us today. To get back on the subject a little bit, there seems to be a real gap between where we are today and getting into war and what our founders had in mind as to why we should be going into war. Can you help us with that?
Well, our founders were eminently reasonable, practical men, and they understood that they should go into situations they should involve the American people in wars only if they knew they had a pretty darn good idea of what they could get out of them and how. They were very keen on having a tight connection between ends and means, between their objectives and what they could and what forces they could muster. In other words, they would have to know what they were doing, and they would have to know that the powers and not distinguishing between our business and someone else's business is the essence of wisdom in international affairs, as it is in interpersonal affairs. No one really minds if you take care of your own business, but they will mind terribly if you are interfering in someone else's. Now, the counsel of minding your own business is not the counsel of retreat. It really is about minding those business, making sure that your own interests, your own values are in fact served. Merely wishing that they be served is not enough. I show in my book how gradually that common sense connection between ends and means, and I've gone off into wishes and really throwing effort at imaginary desires, imaginary enemies, again, without a tight connection between ends, means, and reality.
First of all, is your book available now at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and such?
It is available above all at Amazon.com, but in other venues as well.
Okay. It seems, though, when we get involved in these situations that our intentions are noble, to help somebody else, or at least to help them with freedom and liberty, but maybe we're just not paying attention to what the culture really is, and we just can't we can't imply on them for what they really are.
Look, our civilization teaches intentions are not sufficient. You actually have to know what you are doing. You can't approach a plumbing problem intention of making the pipes work correctly. You have to exactly know that if you change this pipe, that result will happen. And especially given that so-called multiculturalists know nothing about other cultures,
right?
Simply noble they themselves are. It is not surprising that they have thrown us into the situations that they've thrown us into.
All right, so what would be your conclusion, say, with Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan?
Those places are right now being convulsed by what one might call a world war among Muslims. The entire Muslim world is at war within itself in several ways. Sunni against Shia. This has been going on for 1,400 years. Syria especially has become the focus of this world war. In addition to that, you have the Wahhabis of Saudi Arabia, the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a kind of half-secular outgrowth of Islam. It is a mess which is their mess. It isn't simply that they are different from us in civilization. It is while they are fighting each other, they have lost respect for us. We cannot do anything about their internal quarrels, but we can darn well do something to make them respect us, and that is to strike at them for what they do to us, and not simply to go and try to change them. We ought to take care of our business and leave their own internal quarrels to themselves.
Do you think, Angelo, that it's possible now with what's going on? I mean, they are clearly, there is a civil war among them. In fact, I was seeing now where the ISIS group is now actually attacking other mosques,
Oh, of course.
and other mosques and such. I mean, you kind of want to say, why don't we just step back and let them work it out?
Correct.
I mean, they're going to have to war it out themselves.
Well, look, this is correct, and this is not new. ISIS is actually largely a Wahhabi thing. This smashing of tombs, smashing of Muslim icons is not new. Back and at the same time attacking Shia, this is not new. In 1801, for example, these very same people, very same ideas, etc., invaded that very same area and destroyed the cities of Najaf and Karbala, killing not only every man, woman, and child, but also every dog, cat, and living thing because it's unclean. Again, there's nothing new about this.
Yeah.
We ought to recognize that this is something that they have to work out amongst themselves. We cannot govern them. We cannot tell what is right and wrong in their terms.
So what is our interest in the Middle East in light of the fact that they do want to kill Americans and they do want to annihilate Israel? So what is our interest there?
Our interest is in them not killing and then not annihilating Israel. And anything, and we ought to make it perfectly clear to them that any action, not only any action, but any incitement to any action will be met by us with massive force. Look, war is a very ugly thing, and it is sometimes necessary to behave in absolutely brutal ways. And I'm not talking about to ride around their roads and be blown up. I'm talking about not nation building, but nation destroying. That is war. I mean, that is, if you are going to be serious about these things, this is what you must do. The path is victory. That is how it's done. And to close our eyes to that and to imagine that it can be done in any other way is quite foolish. Our founders understood the meaning of war, and that is not the meaning that our current generation is giving.
Well,
they're looking at war as a kind of social work, and it isn't.
All we got to do is look at World War I and World War II, a whole different set of circumstances, but the outcome.
Ain't social work.
Yeah. Now, all right, but in the Middle East, diplomacy hasn't worked, but we still send them money. Why don't we just cut the cash off?
Well, that is certainly what one ought to do. Look, the first rule in any profession is do no harm, and to feed the mouth that bites you is utter stupidity. No, at the very least, do nothing. At the very, very least, do nothing, and then perhaps decide what to do thereafter. But certainly what we have been doing has simply been multiplying our problems.
Wow. Very interesting. Thank you, sir. Again, getting involved in other nations' quarrels, you may want to check it out and at the bookstores. And fascinating. Are you going to do a follow-up to this?
If you like. The title of the book is To Make and Keep Peace Among Ourselves and with All Nations.
Right. Great. Thank you, my friend. Let's talk again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Welcome back. Earlier, our own Jerry Bilden had a chance to talk to Lily Isaacs. Now, her story is fascinating. She's a multi-award-winning Christian artist and author, and she's did an autobiography entitled "You Don't Cry Out Loud." It tells the story of finding Christ, losing a family, battling cancer, going through divorce, and then the faithfulness of God through it all. Let's join Jerry and Lily now in their talk.
Well, it's my pleasure to talk today with Lily Isaacs, the matriarch, the founding member of the Isaacs, who perform often at the Grand Ole Opry, in the Gaither Homecoming concerts and video series. Individually as a group, they've won a lot of awards, including Dove Inspirational Christian Country, International Bluegrass Music Association Awards, among many others, and honors. And we're honored to have you here, Lily. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Jerry. I appreciate it.
Now, you have written quite a book here, and I would like to, we could talk just about music and your family's career and what's going on, but you have written this book that is just an amazing read called You Don't Cry Out Loud. Let me ask you first, I have two questions in one. What made you decide to publish an autobiography? And what's the core message of your book here?
Well, because we've traveled for so many years, we've met thousands of people that have said, you need to put your story in a book. And so I just thought maybe that it would be my legacy if I could maybe put in print what's been in my heart all these years and all that I've been through. I've been through a lot in my life, in different aspects of my life, different phases of my life. And my reason for writing the book was to perhaps share with people that, there is light at the end of the tunnel if you have faith in God and you just plow through. My family taught me survival mode many times. And I feel like I'm where I am today because I just didn't give up and kept pushing through all that. So just felt like it would be an encouragement to people that have gone through different things in their lifetime.
It's interesting that you mention survival mode, that you grew up in your family learning survival mode, and of course part of that is growing up in a Jewish family and especially the history of your family. What was that like growing up in a Jewish family?
When you're growing up and you're involved in something, you don't really realize you're different than anybody else. But my parents, being immigrants, tried very hard to provide for myself and my brother and give us a normal life. We lived in we started out in pretty poor neighborhoods and worked our way up to better apartments and better neighborhoods as my father started working more steadily. So, of course, I always wanted to fit in. And we had some different drama in our life that made me always feel like I couldn't fit in, which is part of my book as well. But, I had a pretty normal life, a good life, middle, just I'd say somewhere in the middle of devastating and really good.
That's an interesting phrase. Now, your parents being Holocaust survivors, how did that affect your life as you grew up and your journey to Christ?
My parents were Holocaust survivors and lost everything during the war. They lost their parents, their brothers and sisters, and many family members. So it really took a toll. When we came to America, I was born in Germany after the war. We started with nothing. And growing up in New York City, my father learned a trade and my parents learned how to speak new language and worked very hard. We became American citizens when I was 9 years old. I'll never forget it. Went to Ellis Island and took the oath with my parents. I was 9 years old and I stood so tall and felt so big and important. Growing up, it was an interesting life. I loved theater arts all of my lifetime, so I always joined all the school plays and I could sing and dance and thought that I would make my family proud because they wanted me to do something successful with my life, and it seemed like the theater was just the place to be. But then God had a different plan for me, and in 1971, because of a death in my husband's family at the time, I wound up in church, and at that point realized and accepted Jesus as Messiah into my heart. And they weren't very happy with me at the time. They were very upset with me. So they were quick to reject me, and it was a very difficult part of my life. I felt abandoned. I felt like what I wanted to do didn't really turn out the way I had planned. And instead of being proud of me, they were ashamed of me. So that was a pretty difficult part of my life. But all in all, looking back, I wouldn't change it because everything happens for a reason. And through that trial, I feel like it just made me a stronger Christian. Mm-hmm. And when my family rejected me, Jesus became everything to me, and he's still my best friend.
How did you come to know him?
Because of a death in my husband's family, he lost a brother during a car accident when he was 27 years old, and it was very tragic. So we went to the funeral, and it was the first funeral I'd ever been to in my life. After the funeral, the family decided to go to church where my brother-in-law used to attend. And I didn't really want to go, but I wanted to go for my husband's sake and for the family's sake. So we sat in the very last pew, and I was really ashamed to be there. But something really got a hold of me that night. And I guess all the questions that I had about God and community and love, that night I just put it all aside and felt conviction in my heart and got down on my knees for the first time in my life, not even knowing how to pray. But that's kind of the way it started. And I think at that moment, God saw my willingness to receive what he had for me, and that taught me to receive more of the Lord. And that's where I learned about Messiah Jesus and all the miracles he'd done, and how Jesus was a Jew just like I was. Mm-hmm. Things that I never knew in my lifetime. And it just all fit together like a puzzle at that point in my life.
Now, you already touched on it briefly, but talk a little bit more into your parents' reaction to this.
When I got saved, I really wanted to sit down with them and explain to them what joy it had brought into my life. And I felt like a void had been filled. So I had planned to go to New York and sit down and just tell them how happy I was. And I knew they would accept that. I thought I did. But I had a cousin visit me at the time, and I was so excited about my new found faith that I took him to church with me, and he went home and spilled the beans. And one day when I was working, my mother called, and I wasn't expecting it. And she said that if I didn't give up that crazy religion, this Jesus stuff, that I could forget I ever had a mother or father, and said for me to never come home again. My father said he'd rather see me dead and buried in the grave than to be a reproach to my family. So I was shocked. I was just shocked. But I had a decision to make in just a few seconds of time. And I feel like that's where I knew I had to stand with the Lord. Regardless of the consequences, I'd found too much joy in knowing Jesus as Messiah. And I told them I didn't want to hurt them, and I wouldn't for anything, but I couldn't lose what I found. So it was a long time. It was months, a year or two before they really received me back home.
So they did come to terms with it?
They did come to terms with it. We didn't talk about religion. When we would, it would start a war, mm-hmm. and I always walked away feeling defeated. So I just felt like I needed to live a good life in front of them and let the Lord shine through me. And they did receive me back home. Even though we might not have agreed on everything, mm-hmm. we agreed to disagree, basically.
Yeah, all right. Well, you went through another process in that too, and that was going from Jewish theater into Christian music. Yeah. Explain a little bit about how that worked and what that was about.
When I was in the late 60s, I thought I was a hippie, and I took some college classes in acting, and I was at Woodstock, and I could always sing, and I played the guitar. So I met a young lady who was also like myself from Manhattan. We took a acting class together, and we started singing in some parties in different areas of the city, and landed a recording contract on Columbia Records in 1967. So that was a miracle, and it was quite exciting for two 19-year-olds that were so green. I didn't know what we were doing. We recorded that album, and it was really amazing to be able to do that. So we started performing in a little nightclub in Greenwich Village, New York, called Gerry's Folk City. During that 2-month engagement, I met my husband there, who was a bluegrass singer. And I had never heard bluegrass music before in my life, never heard the banjo. The only time I heard the banjo was on the Beverly Hillbillies. So it was a beautiful form of music, also very authentic and raw, and just so much similar to folk music at the time that it was interesting to me. So I loved it. I immediately fell in love with it. He and I dated for a couple of years, and then we got married. And after we got saved in 1971, we just started singing together in churches. It was just natural for us to do it. just the two of us, and we'd sing at a church here and there and start doing some homecoming dates where they would have a big day of eating and singing. And so it just kind of snowballed. One place said, will you come to our church? And another place would say, would you come to our church? And then in 1972, we recorded our first gospel album. It went quite well. So it just started building from that point on, where we started singing in a more variety of venues and places. And it was a lot of fun because we were both singers and musicians. And so we just decided to do it for the Lord, and it really worked out great. Then as our kids were born, they were just born singing and started playing instruments at a very young age as well. So that's how we became the Isaacs.
And you have been doing this and so well for so long now, and especially having gone down the road now for the number of years that you've been doing. Talk to me a little bit about your family's vision for this ministry, and has that changed at all through the period of time that you've been doing it?
You know, I think as people get older, your visions change, and I never thought 35, 40 years ago that I'd be doing what I'm doing today, especially with my children. In 1998, my husband and I divorced. We were married for 28 years, and that was pretty painful to go through that, but we've remained friends, and the kids and I continued on in music. We've definitely changed our style some in the last 15 years. My kids are very talented, and they're songwriters as well. So instead of a more traditional bluegrass feel, they've added a more Americana, folky type style. So we've gotten to play in a lot of different genres of music, not just in churches or festivals, but we're at a lot of fairs. We do a lot of Gaither homecoming dates. We visited the Grand Ole Opry numerous times in the last 10, 15 years. My vision for our ministry is, of course, I'd love to branch out into all fields of music. I think that my children have that much talent, and I'm not just talking from a Jewish mother's point of view, but they're just extremely talented. They ventured into all types of music. My daughters have sung backup for the names of Dolly Parton, Paul Simon, Vince Gill, Trace Atkins.
Wow.
My son is a record producer, and he's produced last week projects for the Oak Ridge Boys. He's in the studio with Jimmy Fortune right now. He's produced for Merle Haggard. He's produced for the Gaither Vocal Band. So my kids have just ventured out into different parts of our musical industry. But together as a unit, I feel like we have a lot to offer. We, of course, I'd love to minister more to the Jewish people, if that would be possible. So we try to do some messianic events. We were honored to be a part of John Hagee's Honoring Israel this past fall. That was really, really neat. You know, my vision for our family is to just reach as many people worldwide as we can. Again, through the Gaither homecoming videos, we've been able to go across the world, and people know who we are. And we always thank the Gaithers for the platform that they've given us through that.
All right. Well, you mentioned your divorce. You've had a couple difficult times in your life, namely with your divorce and as a cancer survivor. How did you make it through these things?
Well, you just plow through it. I mean, I think my parents, certainly I inherited that survival mode that you get into when you feel devastated by different things in your lifetime. I'm a cancer survivor of 30 years. It was very scary at the time. I felt like God was a million miles away, but I wanted to live and make the best out of it because I had small children at the time. And you learn that, you know, just because you're a Christian, you're not exempt from problems or disease or sickness or anything. But with faith in God, you know that ultimately He has a plan for your life. And regardless of what that is or where that is, I think the key is to be willing to just follow the leading of God wherever that might be, in whatever scenario that you're in.
Well, in fact, for my last question, I'd like you to speak to those who perhaps are facing similar difficulties and struggles in their life. How would you encourage them?
Well, I would only say that there's no problem that you can have that's too big for God. And I feel like if you trust in the Lord with all of your heart and pray for his perfect will in your life, that he can fix it. There's a lot of things that we can do for ourselves. And then there's things in life that we can't do anything about. But again, I feel like being willing to walk where God has you to walk and keeping an attitude of thy will be done is the key to it. Mm-hmm. I know I would have never gotten through so many of the things that I've gone through had I not had the Lord with me to carry me.
Mm-hmm. Well, the name of the book is You Don't Cry Out Loud, and I went on and I read reviews by folks who have been reading your book, and everybody loves this book for good reason. It's a tremendous read. I would encourage everybody to get it. You Don't Cry Out Loud, the Lily Isaacs story. It's been our pleasure to speak with the matriarch. Lily, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate what you do for all of us. Thank you. God bless you.
All right, well, it's certainly an encouraging testimony. Coming up next, we have a very special person with us, and she heads up an interesting website, girlsjustwannahaveguns.com. Whoa, get ready for this. It's going to be pretty interesting. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Well, welcome back. Well, I am delighted to have with us today Regis Giles. He's the creator and the owner of girlsjustwannahaveguns.com. And she's a leading voice for the Second Amendment rights. She's self-defense and conservation. Perhaps you've seen her on some of the major networks, but today she's made it to the big time. She's on the Dove Radio and TV network. Hi, Regis. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Perry?
Good. Where are we Skyping you in from?
Miami, Florida. Beautiful out here.
All right. Nice to have you. Well, this is fascinating. Where in the world did you pick up your love for guns?
My dad introduced me to shooting when I was the rightful age of 9 years old. And, you know, I was terrified of the thought. But when we got there at the shooting range, I fell in love with shooting, and I just couldn't stop. I got into shooting because of hunting, really. And I haven't stopped hunting or shooting since then. And I started my website, girlsjustwannahaveguns.com, because I wanted to motivate women to learn how to shoot, learn how to defend their lives, because statistics are out and they're not in our favor when it comes to acts of violence being performed against us. So we have to know how to fight. I've been training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 13 years now with the Valente brothers down here in Miami. And I know how to handle anyone who comes at me. So I wanted to give women the fortitude to turn from prey to formidable defender.
Wow, fascinating, because some of the statistics show that the spike in gun sales and even ammunition sales over the last several years, a big portion of that is women.
Yeah, and it's either a genius marketing plan on the gun industry, or more women are realizing that they need to buy a gun for self-defense. And because it's the great equalizer, it brings that extra muscle power for that woman. So if some perverted freak who tries to rape them sees a muzzle of a gun in their face, you know, that woman is protected, and that guy most likely will skedaddle and not stick around to get shot.
How's the response been to your website?
It's been great. A lot of women have shown their support for the website, and fathers. A lot of fathers absolutely contact me, call me. They say, Regis, thank you so much for what you're doing, because now my girls realize that, hey, I can be like Regis and learn how to fight, and it's okay. It's cool. It's not scary or manly to do that. So it's very good response.
Fascinating.
Yeah, we've got about 35,000 followers on Facebook, and even more subscribers to the website, so it's really great.
Now, do you encourage them to go on and get a concealed permit?
Absolutely. If you are interested in shooting, if you're interested in having a gun for self-defense, it's good to have one around you at any time. So if you want to carry a gun, get your concealed carry permit. If you're not comfortable with holding a firearm, carrying it around for you, I don't suggest getting that gun then. Get a taser or some, pepper spray, something like that. My whole point of the website not only is to inform readers on world politics, because we cover everything on girlsjustwannahave.guns.com, but it's to turn the woman from that victim mentality to the formidable defender, just in case anything were to happen. It's better to be prepared than not prepared. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. This is interesting because it brings into play so many other parts of the discussion, Regis. You have the anti-war thinking, you have the anti-gun thinking, and
yeah.
How do you balance this with your faith? How do you say as a Christian this is okay?
Well, Christ said to turn the other cheek when someone, scolds you about your faith, but not when someone's trying to rape you. I think God would be okay with you, double tapping center mass to some perverted freak who's trying to rape or kill you. So I think God would forgive me, even if it was a sin, if I had to, go that extra step and kill someone who's trying to kill me. So, God said, "Thou shalt not kill," intentionally. That this is not an intentional killing if it were to happen. So I think God's okay with it.
The guns, for the most part, in the anti-Second Amendment movement, has been demonized. I mean, you know the story, you know the drill, how much negative guns have been portrayed.
Yep.
But on the other hand, it's very much as our right as citizens of the United States to have them. And that continues to be threatened. Where do you see this going?
It can sway either way, but honestly, there's too many Americans here who have a lot of guns, and they've tried to take them away before. They're still trying to, and they're failing on every turn that they're trying to make. That yes, there are backdoor ways that they're trying to do it through the healthcare system. They've, doctors ask, "Do you own a gun?" Things like that. So there are backdoor avenues that gun controllers are trying to make, but I think there's enough guns out there privately owned by American citizens to really try for government to try and take them away. It's going to be a very big fight if they try and do that. So
what do you say to the woman who is leaned towards maybe having one but is afraid to do it? What do you say to them?
Well, I say start off small. Don't shoot like a 500 Smith & Wesson at your shooting a gun. That's a bad idea. Shoot a 22 caliber. It's a light caliber gun, very easy to shoot. And that way you learn the mechanics of a firearm, but also do it with an instructor. Go to a class that teaches you how to shoot a firearm, properly handle it. Go with a loved one who will teach you very patiently and make the experience enjoyable, because you don't want to go there with someone who's going to stress you out, make the experience completely terrible for you, so you never want to touch a gun again. So set up the environment for yourself. Get a light caliber gun, get someone to teach you that will make it a very pleasant experience for you, and just go to the range and see, if it's for you. And I guarantee you will love it, because for some reason, speaking things that go bang is a lot of fun.
Well, I was raised at a very young age with guns and have great respect for them. And in fact, I packed an empty gun for many years before my dad would ever let me load it, So I was raised with that. This is very interesting. What you're thinking about, because there are other agencies that want to publish those who have concealed permits. What's your thinking on that?
They have us on the books already. Why do they need to publish that and make that, public records? To me, it's kind of baffling, but at the same time, with concealed carriers, if they publish it, it just lets the robbers know that
you're armed.
We actually have the guns, and it endangers our neighbors who don't have guns. So they're actually working backwards for the safety of the American citizen. If they go and publish that list, say, yeah, these are the people with guns. They know how to defend themselves. Go and target these homes that don't have guns. Right. They're helping out the robbers.
All right. So how many women? Do you have any idea how many women are packing these days?
Thousands. I believe it's. I don't have an exact number, but I know it's about 20 to 40% of the gun industry is women, all women, and that's a very big percentage. So, I mean, the gun industry has millions and millions of people coming to them and buying products. So that's good news on my side.
What's the caliber of choice for women in their purse?
It's really depending on what you like to shoot. Do you like to shoot a revolver? Do you like to shoot a semi-automatic gun? I like carrying a .38 Special. That's a revolver, snub nose. It's a nice concealed carry. I also have a .380 LCP. So that's a semi-automatic. It just depends on, your personality, what kind of guns you like to shoot, and what outfit you're wearing for the day, because us ladies have to conceal things a little bit different than men.
Well, you're being pretty honest there. This is fascinating because, first of all, I commend you. I just want you to know I think this is wonderful, and I think women ought to seriously look at it because I think there was some areas in fact, I think down in Florida several years ago where they issued permits to women and they kind of made a thing out of it, and lo and behold, the rape and robbery rate went down.
It was Orlando, yeah. Yep. I mean, to me, it's more common sense than common sense gun control to have a woman be able to defend herself with any tool she wants. Let's say it's a gun, and have that available to her, because the more opportunity she has to defend her life, the more possibility is that, number one, she won't get attacked because she's aware of her surroundings, she's armed and secure. Number two, if it does happen, that SOB is going down. And I'd prefer a woman armed and prepared to defend her life than completely defenseless and saying it's the man's job to not rape the woman when clearly he has full intent to go in and rape. It's mind-boggling that today feminists, women of today, are saying no, it's the man's responsibility not to rape the woman. We shouldn't have to defend ourselves. We shouldn't have to go take martial art classes or learn how to shoot. And to me, that's a complete victim mentality. Go to the gun range, go to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, defend your life, because it's your life. It's your responsibility to protect it.
You know, it's interesting. You bring up an interesting point here, Regis, and that is, isn't it interesting we do not hear in the news or publish in the paper the rape and assault cases, and they're numerous. It's like they've been washed from the media.
They're washed from the media. If they are published, it's a convoluted case where it was an ex-lover, things like that. And that happens. A lot of times the attacks are someone that is personally close to you. And what I also don't see in the media is when robbers break into homes of, a single mother where she has her child in the crib, and she gets her shotgun and blasts the guy because he invaded her space, came in with a gun, pointing, trying to, do whatever to her, and she blasts the guy. There's multiple stories like that, And yet you don't see it in the news because it promotes Second Amendment values. Their freedom is protected. Their life and liberty is protected because they had that firearm to defend them.
A couple other quick questions. What do you say to parents who are thinking about this for their daughters, and at what age? I mean, you were raised with it very young, at 9, I think you said. I think I was packing a shotgun when I was 6 or 7 years old, empty, I might add. But nonetheless, what would you say to parents thinking along these lines?
It's completely up to the parents, but I live on the standard it's never too young to teach your child how to defend their life, even if it's with just a martial art class to begin with, because kids are attacked too. There's crazy people, crazy pedophiles out there. I just published a story on girlsjustwannahaveguns.com where Walt Disney employees, about 35 of them were arrested on pedophilia charges, trying to have sex with kids. And it's a major sting that they did. And that's scary because they were working in environments where there's a lot of kids. And you never know when your child is going to get attacked. So having them know how to defend themselves is very crucial and very key, because it not only gives them a sense of confidence and discipline that is embedded in them when they're young, but it also, when they grow up, you'll be able to let them travel and know that they are safe and secure because they know how to protect themselves.
Let me just make the record clear here. We're not advocating kids carry here, but there is an age limit on all this.
Right. Yeah. Learning how to fight is hand-to-hand. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's a self-defense form of martial art where I don't need to carry a gun. I feel like I don't need a gun, but it's my insurance policy just in case something happens. And teaching your kid about guns, gun safety is very crucial because it minimizes the risk of an accident happening in your home with a firearm. So educating your kids on guns, how to fight, it's important stuff because it's the way of life, especially if you have a firearm at the house. It's just basic knowledge that they should know. My parents taught me, we had guns in the house all the time. If you see a gun, you don't touch it. You come and get us immediately. And that was it. And then my dad took me at the gun range at 9 years old to learn how to shoot. So it's really up to the parent how old they think their kid is ready for it.
Well, this is fascinating. The website, if you want to check it out, it's called girlsjustwannahaveguns.com. And you can certainly join Regis there. And it's more than just that. As she mentioned before, you have a lot of articles. You keep them up to date on Second Amendment issues. I will say this, Regis, it appears to me that in spite of all of the attempts to hinder the Second Amendment, every time it's touched, there's usually a major turnover in Congress. It just seems to be well entrenched in the American mindset that this is one of our rights, leave us alone.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting attacked on every front, so being well educated on your Second Amendment rights and knowing what your state Congress is doing, what your national Congress is doing is very important, because the battle is every day. I see news stories published about different laws and stuff trying to take away your Second Amendment right. But yes, we are in America. It is a gun culture. And thank God that our founding fathers knew that we needed to have our own protection to keep our government in check and not become a tyranny government.
Well, listen, you're a fun guest, and again, I just want people to check out our website, girlsjustwannahaveguns.com. Thank you, Regis. Keep up the good work, and let's stay in touch, okay?
Absolutely. Have a good one.
You too. Okay, and we'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, theDove.us.